I had always thought there was no prevention for type 1 diabetes, but then I did research and came across countless studies referencing the link between exposure to dairy at a young age and type 1 diabetes.
I mean, this is a food made for baby cows. Cow milk protein gets into the bloodstream. The body says, hey, this isn't supposed to be in the bloodstream. It makes antibodies to the cow milk protein, which then attack the pancreas, destroy the pancreas.
How is this possible that ADA wouldn't have this forefront on their website? Why wouldn't they be warning all parents about this, even if there are only a slight chance? Why were they recommending people to actually eat these foods linked to diabetes? It seemed all of the large health organizations were encouraging people to eat the very foods linked to the diseases they're supposed to be fighting against. American Heart Association promoting beef, American Cancer Society promoting processed meat, pink ribbons on dairy products, and bacon-wrapped shrimp on American Diabetes Association. And then it all came together. What if? And there it was. The American Diabetes Association was taking money from Dannon, one of the world's largest dairy yogurt producers, Kraft Foods, makers of Velveeta processed cheese, Oscar Mayer processed meats, Lunchables processed kids meals, and Bumblebee Foods, makers of processed canned meats. American Cancer Society was taking money from Tyson, one of the world's largest meat producers, and Yum Brand, owner of Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell. Susan G. Komen was supposed to be fighting breast cancer, was corporate partnering with KFC, Dietz Watson Processed Meats, and Yoplait Yogurt. And the American Heart Association was probably the most disturbing of all, taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the beef industry, poultry, and dairy producers, and millions from fast food and processed food manufacturers. Every single one of these organizations was taking money from meat and dairy companies that are associated with the causes of these diseases. This would be like the American Lung Association taking money from the tobacco industry. I was sick of not getting answers. So I went to the headquarters of these organizations myself. We had to speak to someone in person. There's millions of people dying from the foods that they're recommending people to eat. I wanted to find out why Susan G. Komen had accepted $35 million from Yoplait when their products can increase a woman's chance of dying from breast cancer 49%. And ask American Cancer Society if taking money from KFC and Tyson was the reason they promote eating meat. But every one of these organizations declined to be interviewed.
What's really sad is that we cannot trust information from these leading health organizations like the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, because they are taking money from the very industries who are causing the problems that they're, supposed to be helping to prevent.
So that makes the truth something that you're not going to be hearing as far as nutrition goes from these organizations. Well, that would be the end of their funding, that would be the end of their jobs, that would be lawsuits, that would bring the entire catastrophe down upon their heads, and they would essentially disappear as organizations.
This one time I got invited to a charity fundraiser for the American Diabetes Association. And I showed up and they had a whole buffet and it was all just animal products. I remember like a big thing of barbecue chicken. And I was like, I stormed out. I said, like, serving chicken at a diabetes event is like serving alcohol at an AA meeting. It just doesn't make sense.
We had scheduled to film an interview with a prominent surgeon, but before we could get inside the building, the hospital's media relations manager stopped us.
Actually, I understand that Dr. said that you could film here today, but unfortunately that's not going to be able to happen. I know that he advocates for patients changing their diets, but the hospital makes money off these surgeries, and the reality is he does too. So we can't do anything that's going to negatively impact the hospital. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to film here today.
I was sickened by how open she was about the hospital being more interested in profits than people's health. But it wasn't just this hospital or these organizations. Even the U.S. government is involved too. Every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture creates dietary guidelines for Americans. The committee who writes these guidelines has been made up of individuals who have received money from McDonald's, the National Dairy Council, the American Meat Institute, the National Dairy Board, the National Livestock and Meat Board, the American Egg Board, Dannon, candy and sugar companies, Coca-Cola, and Anheuser, just to name a few, which means we're getting our dietary recommendations from the very industries that are killing us.
And when the USDA, makes a pyramid or a power plate every 5 years for the American public,
They're going to guarantee that on that plate are going to be foods which, when consumed, will result in millions of Americans perishing.
The USDA, which is supposed to be protecting us, has two missions. It's supposed to protect us, and it's supposed to protect the producer. And guess what? When those two come head to head, they usually choose the producer. In internal documents uncovered by Dr. Greger, the USDA admitted that eggs cannot legally be called nutritious, low-fat, part of the balanced diet, low-calorie, healthful, healthy, can't say it's good for you, or even safe. Yet they still promote these products to the American people through federal checkoff programs. If you ask somebody if they've heard the checkoff program, the odds are they haven't, although daily they are seeing the messaging that these programs produce. So checkoff programs are responsible for the messages that we see on TV, on the internet, on bus billboards and magazines that say things like milk, it does a body good, or milk life, beef, it's what's for dinner, pork, be inspired, incredible edible egg. The dairy checkoff program gave $12 million to Domino's to just market cheese-heavy products. And this is the USDA, this is the government. If you've seen those ads for the Pizza Hut pizza, the stuffed crust, or a pound of cheese, those are all government advertising schemes for the industry. How can we put more cheese on beef? How can we put more milk in a coffee? Things like that to just drive consumption of these just unbelievably unhealthful products. So McDonald's, for instance, has 6 people staffed full-time, according to records we found, whose salaries are paid for by this government program, but funded by the producers who are regulated by it. And these 6 people sit there at McDonald's headquarters and just come up with ideas.
Triple cheese decker McCheese muffin stuffed bacon cheese slider
With extra cheese?
Yes.
You don't think of it on a day-to-day basis that these are government programs. Like Wendy's bacon double cheeseburger, government program. The steak fajita at Dunkin' Donuts, government program. You would just never think that this just pure garbage from a food standpoint is coming from a federally funded program. That's one of the things that makes checkoffs so incredibly creepy, is that it is our government telling us, eat more beef, drink more milk, eat more cheese, eat more pork. One of the very effective ways that the dairy industry promotes its products is to reach children, because kids are impressionable, they're going to be consumers for their entire lives, and you might as well get them while they're young. So dairy spends at least $50 million promoting its products in public schools throughout the country with posters with people with milk mustaches and messages like milk, it does a body good, or milk life.
Targeting young people, right? The tobacco industry has to keep replacing their customers who are dying with new customers. Meat industry knows they have to target young people. That's why we have these foods in schools and marketing messages at a younger and younger age for kids to get hooked on all the wrong kinds of foods. So there's all kinds of parallels.
School districts where processed meats are all over the place. Maybe it's going to be bacon on the menu, sausage, hot dogs, or pepperoni pizza. Any of those things are processed meats, and those are pretty much the worst of the direct link to colon cancer. And yet you have every day in the schools meal items with processed meats.
If the Surgeon General puts warning labels on tobacco because of their cancer risk, why aren't the same warning labels on meat?
Based on the publicly available data, we know they spend at least $557 million promoting their goods through checkoff programs. We know that they spend at least $138 million lobbying Congress. We expect that they spend a good deal more than that, but in figures that simply aren't publicly disclosed.
The industry's lobbying power is so strong that they can create laws and push through legislation that doesn't benefit Americans in any way, such as ag-gag laws that criminalize whistleblowing or photographing abuses by this industry. Activists in the U.S. can be charged as terrorists for disrupting the profits of any business that uses animals under the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act, to the even more ridiculous ones like cheeseburger laws.
A cheeseburger law is a law that says a plaintiff cannot recover against a manufacturer, distributor, or retailer on the theory that the food made the plaintiff obese or caused an obesity-related disease.
Cheeseburger laws are a direct response to a problem that the tobacco industry has had. Big Tobacco has paid $400 billion to state Medicaid programs. Cheeseburger laws proponents say, we don't want to see the same kind of thing happen to the meat and dairy industries. The fact that these laws are based on a model template called the common sense
Consumption Act is actually ironic because what they're saying is you, the consumer, should have the common sense to know that our food is bad for you. I've often typified the meat industry to people who maybe don't understand its power and reach as it's got all the money of big tobacco and big pharma, and it has the personality of the National Rifle Association. So any little thing that comes up, man, they beat it to death.
Robert Martin wasn't exaggerating. When the profits of the egg industry were threatened by egg alternative company Hampton Creek Foods, extremely disturbing emails were uncovered by Ryan Shapiro and Jeffrey Light.
We uncovered documents demonstrating the American Egg Board considers Hampton Creek, quote, a crisis and major threat to the future of the American egg industry. The American Egg Board considers a successful egg replacer company to be such a threat that they joke on their government email addresses about murdering the CEO.
In internal government emails with the heads of the egg industry, they suggest having the CEO of Hampton Creek, Josh Tetrick, murdered, including a menacing email from the executive director of the American Egg Board.
The meat producers don't have to pay for the heart disease or the environmental destruction or any of the other externalities, as economists call them, that their products cause.
Then there's the whole pharmaceutical aspect of it, and the fact that there's a very strong pharmaceutical industry and lobby that has a huge stake in preserving the status quo.
These chronic diseases, these are the cash cows of the pharmaceutical industry. You have a $5 billion stent industry. Do they ever want to see that go away? We've got a $35 billion stent drug industry. Do they ever want to see that go away?
I'm talking about the pharmaceutical industry effectively controls what doctors are told.
Most research isn't put into prevention, it's put into the medication that we might use for that particular disease.
I'm on 2 different high blood pressure medicines, 6 asthma type medicines, even after 4 years of shots, and then another medicine to help take care of side effects from some of those medicines. I'm on high level antidepressants, a couple of different pain meds for my back and hips.
I'm taking about 16 drugs, not counting the insulin in the morning. I take insulin morning, insulin night, 32 to 34 units of insulin. Lantus, to be exact. Some of these meds are for diabetes. This is for peeing. I have to use this for my prostate, and then I have to use this for the heart, and I have to use this for blood pressure. And it's just on and on and on and on. The doctors are telling me this is what I've got to do for my whole life, and it's frustrating. And it's very stressful, and I don't know how long my liver is going to last taking all this stuff.
Under conventional medical treatment, whether it be for autoimmune disease or even conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes, you're told that you have to take drugs, and not just for a week or a month or a year. You're told you have to take drugs forever. You're guaranteed that if you follow your doctor's advice, you'll be sick forever. You'll never get well. That's the guarantee. Because the strategies are all about manipulating the symptoms, not dealing with the underlying cause.
You come in with that diagnosis, you get a bunch of pills that have nothing to do with the disease causation, or you get these procedures that have nothing to do with disease causation.
It's a deception. You say this pill will help you unclog your arteries, this one will save you from a stroke. No, it doesn't. The people who take the statins, etc., they still get their heart attacks, they still get their strokes. This is not reverse disease. This is not make plaques smaller. This is a fraud of massive proportion.
In the US, treating chronic disease such as heart disease, cancer, and diabetes is a $1.5 trillion industry. That's the GDP equivalent of the 10th richest country in the world. I went back and dug deeper into the health organization's funding, and there it was again. These organizations were accepting millions of dollars from pharmaceutical companies that are making billions of dollars from the very same diseases these health groups are supposedly trying to end. It seemed like a major conflict of interest, unless ending these diseases isn't really the goal. The pharmaceutical industry spends more money on lobbying than any other single industry. Just like animal agriculture, they are so powerful, they write their own laws that have had activists in prison to silence them.
Government's in bed with anyone that gives them the most money, which is the pharmaceutical industry, which is the animal ag industry. It's like They are pumping the government full of money and resources, and in return, the government's giving them what they want: subsidies, imprisoning activists that go against them. And I think it's quite telling that these industries are working so hard and spending so much money to criminalize people for simply taking a picture, for simply recording what's going on inside these facilities and making it known to the public. They're behind walls. They're underground. They're in these secret facilities that no one knows about. But if they did, they would be shocked and outraged. And I think people would not want to think that their pharmaceuticals, that their food are coming from these places. And that's why I think the ag laws are what they are, is because they are trying to silence people into not speaking out and not showing the truth.
I finally.
Well, so that's the big pharma industry. I guess that's it.